What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips for game week 15. So I'm going to go through some of the popular players people are thinking about taking out of their teams or bringing in and give my opinion on whether they are good moves or not, and provide some alternatives as well. Not all the matches are finished for game week 14 yet, but it's only Man United and West Ham left to go. So anything major from that game, I will cover in final thoughts tomorrow. Anyway, so let's get into this one. So let's start with Semenyo, who's now dropped to 7.7 million. Lots of people thinking about selling him this week. Primarily, they're selling him for Phil Foden, and I'm going to talk about Foden a bit more in a minute. But if you're thinking about that move and you can do it for free, it seems pretty good to me. So don't overthink it. If you're doing Semenyo to Foden, one free transfer, you got cash in the bank, yeah, it's a good move. In terms of Semenyo individually, he's 51.2% owned, and he's not got more than 4 points since game week 7. It's been really poor. Against Everton, no goals, no assists. He did pick up defensive contributions, which is great. It's almost the same as getting an assist. But you want a bit more than that from him. And I watched that game because I couldn't bear to watch the Man City game when I didn't have Haaland captain. And all I can say is Bournemouth were just so uninspiring. Like, they were the home team. The emphasis is on them to go and win that game. And they didn't really trouble Everton all that much. And that's an Everton side with Idrissa Gay out suspended. Michael Keane missed out as well. And Everton were just, Everton were good, and we've got to give credit to them. But I just thought Bournemouth were poor. They were just like they were out of ideas in attack. And I know people have wanted Evan Nielsen out of the team, then Krupi Jr. comes in. But I'm not quite sure it's working right now. So I think if you want to sell Semenyo, it's fine. I will say after Chelsea at home, Man United away is not a bad fixture. Burnley at home is a great fixture in 17. And then Brentford away in 18 is not that bad. So I still would not look at Semenyo as a player that is a massive problem in your team. If you've got other stuff you want to sort first, this guy is going to play 90 minutes every single week, no matter whether there's midweek fixtures or not. And there's not many players you can definitively say that about. I mean, maybe Semenyo could get rotated. And I've got to say that because I got a lot of stuff wrong recently with Salah, etc. But I don't think he will. I think he'll play every game as long as he's fit and available. So I wouldn't see him as a must-sell, but I do think he is sellable because there's other midfielders that are good right now. He's playing a Chelsea team that are mostly good, although they lost to Leeds last night pretty convincingly. So it's hard to know what to make of them. They can be inconsistent, but I would still have Chelsea at home as a bit of a difficult fixture. Yeah, I think basically, long story short, I think it's fine to sell him. But I still don't see him as an absolute must-sell. But he is far from essential, which is what it felt like he was earlier on in the season. So let's talk about Phil Foden. 2 goals in game week 13. And what did he follow that up with? Not only 2 goals in game week 14, but he also got DEFCONs as well. So 15 points in game week 13, 17 in game week 14. And all of a sudden, those fears about rotation, have you noticed they've gone down quite a bit? The guy started every single game since game week 4. But it's the 4 goals in 2 games that are going to stop us worrying about rotation. That's how FPL works sometimes. Even me, who's kind of afraid to bring in Man City players in case they get benched, I'm looking at it thinking, how much longer can I go without Foden? Like, the minutes are incredible. He's 87 minutes per start. Like I said, every game since game week 4, he's been in that 11. I'm not really sure who they would even bring in for him in the role that he's playing. So it's not to say that he can't be rotated, because of course he can. I've already had lots of questions about whether he's primed for a benching in game week 15. It could happen, especially with Real Madrid in the Champions League straight afterwards. But Pep has said many times before that Foden can play week in, week out, like including midweek games. It's not a problem for him in terms of fitness. And ultimately, at Sunderland at home this week, it might just be worth taking that risk. And then you got Palace away in 16, which doesn't look like quite such a bad fixture right now. I still don't think that will be easy for Man City, but I do think, and we said this weeks ago, I think eventually Palace will struggle. Because it's great for FPL that Glasner never rotates. We know who's going to be in that 11. It's great for predictions, but it's not so good for the players longer term. They're not used to playing in Europe. They don't have the squad depth to do much rotation. Glasner's just running those players into the ground. So I still don't think Palace away is easy, but it might not be the worst time to play them. And then West Ham at home in 17 is great. So, look, it is a knee-jerk. If he hadn't got 4 goals in the last 2 games and a blanked, we wouldn't be talking about him as much as we are. We have to admit that. But the minutes are there. They've been there since game week 4. He's got a really good fixture on. Even after West Ham, Forest away, Sunderland away, is not bad. And if you're doing the Semenyo to Foden switch, I can't really see any reason to dodge that. I mean, let's not forget Man United haven't played yet this game week. Maybe Cunha starts against West Ham and gets a brace or a hat-trick. Who knows? And then he's got Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, which isn't bad. But I don't think there's anything Cunha can do tonight that makes people think that he is a better pick than Foden. So if you're thinking about bringing him in, you can do it for free. I would do it. Would I do it for a hit? I mean, as always, that's going to depend on the nature of the hit, who you're taking out, who you're bringing in, etc. But he does look like a pretty... Like, if he keeps... Again, I know this is like a complete change in talk about Foden, but that is the reality of the situation right now. If he keeps starting and you don't get concerned about his minutes, like, you're probably keeping him for quite a while. Because after Sunderland, Chelsea at home, okay, not great. But then Brighton at home, Man United away, Wolves at home is fine. So you're kind of into the end of January now. Like I did say last week, after the Leeds game, maybe we just consider Foden nailed until he's not. And the other thing as well, and again, maybe I'm just creating a narrative here because he's got 4 goals in 2 games. What other midfielders feel like must-haves right now? Like if you don't have them, it's going to be a massive problem. Like even Saka got benched last night. There's concerns over whether Bruno Fernandes will start. We'll obviously see that game before we have to make any decisions for game week 15. I think getting him in and just taking the risk on the minutes is probably okay. I guess the issue is, what if he gets benched against Sunderland? Well, it's not a problem. He'll just probably start against Palace. And then he'll start against West Ham almost certainly. So, yeah, just a good pick. And like I'm saying it like that, kind of a bit downhearted about the situation because I know I'm not bringing him in this week. Unless Saka or Fernandes is injured, I just got no way of getting him for free. I'm not going to take a hit. And I probably won't have him for 16. By the time it gets to 17, his price will probably be 8.5 million. I'm not looking forward to this. That ownership is going to go so high this week. Good luck to you, although I hope he blanks. So there might be some of you out there that own Michael Keane, who didn't feature for Everton against Bournemouth in game week 14. Apparently he's picked up a bit of a knock. We don't yet know how long he's going to be out for. He's only yellow flagged on FPL. We'll see what David Moyes says on Friday. If you are an owner and you are hoping to play him this week and he is out, I think he is quite sellable because you can always come back to him. Bearing in mind we got 5 free transfers from game week 16 because after Forest at home, it's Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, which is not great. So maybe he's worth just coming back to in game week 18. He is only 4.6 million. Some of you would have got him at 4.5. If you want to keep him longer term, that's absolutely fine. You can put him on your bench. It depends on your team, your future moves, etc. But I think he would be sellable. If you're looking for a cheap defender under 5 million, I mean, this week it's probably Newcastle players. Well, I mean, Chow is now 5 million actually, and Dan Burn is 5.1, but they're close enough, right? You've got Newcastle defenders against Burnley. Lewis Hall started again in game week 14. He is pretty damn attacking in that team, but I think I would probably go for one of the centre-backs. I mean, you've even got like Van der Ven, maybe against Brentford at home, possibly, as like a really short-term move. I wouldn't want to bring him in and hold him long-term. So probably Newcastle this week. If you've got a bit of money, maybe O'Reilly if he's fit and available. Otherwise, if you want to sell him, let's say you've got Keane, nothing else to do, and you want to use your free transfer in game week 15, then I quite like Vandenberg from game week 16 onwards. So if I just bring up the Brentford fixtures, this is like basically this is a player that I've been looking at for a couple of weeks to maybe bring in 15 and just bench. Then you've got Leeds at home in 16, Wolves away 17, Bournemouth at home 18. Even if you had to play him against Spurs at home, it's not great, but it wouldn't be awful. Like, let's say you get to 19, you're completely stuck for players. You've got Vandenberg on the bench. Playing him against Spurs at home is okay. Everton away, Sunderland at home. Even after that, bench for Chelsea away, Forest at home. So I think he fits into the category of short-term move, potentially. Leeds at home, Wolves away. And if you want to get rid of him later, you can. But also is not a bad long-term hold. I would say, even with 5 free transfers coming up in game week 16, I'm not sure how many of them I want to spend on 4.5 million defenders. So just think about the long term as well. So yeah, we'll find out more from Moyes on Friday, but I think Keane, he's cheap enough to bench if that works for your squad. But I think it's also okay to sell him because of the fixtures afterwards if he's a doubt for 15. So sticking to Everton, Ndiaye is another player that I think is pretty sellable at the moment. And that is a word that I'm going to be using quite a bit in the run up to the game week 15 deadline because we do have to think differently. With the 5 transfer top up in game week 16, there are moves that you can make this week that you wouldn't usually think about. I think if this was a normal situation, you'd be thinking, well, Ndiaye's nailed. Forest at home's not bad fixture. He's on penalties. I'll just roll into next week. But for most of us, we've got a transfer to use this week. You don't have to use it, by the way. If your team is absolutely fine, no issues whatsoever, and you don't want to sell Ndiaye before Forest at home, that's perfectly okay. But he is very sellable game week 16 because it's Chelsea away, then it's Arsenal at home in 17, and he'll be off to African Cup of Nations anyway. So you're not even going to be able to have him for like Burnley away, Forest away, etc., depending on how long he's away on international duty. So by all means, keep him this week. If you've got other issues to deal with, a nailed on penalty taker against Forest at home is never terrible. But if the rest of the team looks good, that's a nice transfer to set you up from game week 16, I would say, for a guy that's not done anything since game week 10. So it's fine to keep him. I wouldn't sell him, by the way, just because he hasn't done anything since game week 10. Like, nailed penalty takers have got a habit of just getting something out of nowhere. But if you've got nothing else to do, I really don't mind the transfer, because from 16 onwards, he's probably going to be someone you're looking to get rid of anyway. So Mo Salah benched once again for Liverpool, second match in a row. He did come on at half-time for Cody Gakpo, who I'll talk about later, but 14.1 million for 45 minutes over 2 game weeks. He has to go. And I know there's some of you out there that have held on this long. There is no reason whatsoever to keep him in your team. I mean, I can't even sit here and say he'll definitely start against Leeds away. Like, I think he will. That will be my prediction. But I also thought he'd start in game week 14. I also thought he'd start in game week 13. Now, I know in game week 13, some people were kind of putting the question to me, is there a chance he could drop out? I was absolutely adamant it wouldn't happen. And I still think it was a massive shock, to be honest. Game week 14, I just thought 2 games in a row to be benched. Mo Salah, like, that's a big headline. And he did it anyway. So the minutes are just not there. Like, you cannot justify keeping Salah any longer, other than he's a huge differential and he should start against Leeds. Should is not good enough for 14.1 million. So you've got to sell him. And if you're sat there without a Haaland squad, or without Haaland in your squad, he's got to come in. Like, it's kind of, in some ways it feels a little bit sad, because if you've been playing FPL for a long time, like, Salah's been the best pick for so many game weeks for like 8 years. And like, to see him go from like record breaker in FPL to now completely washed as a pick is so strange. But that's what I love about FPL. It's never as predictable as you think, and stuff always changes. And right now, he's just not a pick. And it's a bit of a shame as well, because the more premium players that are options, I think the better the game is, because you've got to make more decisions. And obviously, without the need for Salah, it's a bit easier to spread money around and stuff like that. But that's the situation right now. He's just not an option. And like, I'm thinking, will he ever be an option again? Well, will we ever pick Salah in FPL again? Because what would he have to do this season for you to go back? Haaland would probably have to get injured, and Salah would have to show a few starts and a bit of form after African Cup of Nations, of course, and then maybe you'd go there. But it's going to take many, many, many weeks, like 15 plus game weeks, I think, for anyone to trust him again. And who knows what happens next season, whether he'll be at Liverpool or not. I'm assuming he will be, but there has to be a chance now that, like, if you're not using Salah regularly, he's on a lot of money. I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. Just get rid. Yeah, simple as that. So speaking of Liverpool players that aren't very good FPL picks at the moment, let's talk about Virgil van Dijk. Another match last night, another non-clean sheet. He did pick up defensive contributions and only conceded once, although they did come close to conceding twice. So he finished on 4 points. But it doesn't feel great for 6 million when Munoz is the same price and scoring goals for fun. So Van Dijk is a super frustrating pick at the moment, who, if you're a non-owner, you're probably not looking to bring in. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. It's perfectly fine decision to make. If you're an owner, is there any reason to keep hold of him? I think there is. And maybe this is just pure copium. But this game week just gone is the perfect example of why Van Dijk might not be a terrible pick over Christmas. Because you know what's going to happen the next time there's a midweek game week? There's going to be a lot of panic about players being rotated, like Timber, Saka, etc., who we'll discuss later on. There's no worry about that with Van Dijk. And so, yes, he didn't keep a clean sheet. He didn't get an attack and return, but he still finished on 4. You look at someone like Timber, who's more expensive. Well, he got benched and then came on for a 1-pointer. Could he get benched the next time Arsenal have a midweek? I mean, obviously it's a possibility now because it's just happened. So it could happen again. You don't have those concerns with Van Dijk. And look, can I even sit here now and say there's going to be clean sheets over the next 3 to 5 games? Maybe not, but there's a chance in some of these fixtures. He's extremely good for defensive contributions, 10.36 per start. And the goal threat is there. It's an interesting one because the attacking numbers this year are not really showing much goal threat. But if you watch that game last night, he did have a couple of good chances. In fact, one of them was blocked by Kirkes, who got in the way. Wasn't a bad header. On another day, maybe that goes in. All of a sudden, we're sat here with 10 points plus. It's a different conversation. So by all means, don't buy him. And I'm kind of with 2 away games in the next 3, Leeds this week, Spurs in 17. I'm kind of of the opinion if you want to sell him to free up some money. I've looked at it, by the way. I've looked at freeing up funds to be able to go from Minte up to Foden eventually, rather than selling Cunha, Fernandes, or Saka. I've looked at that, and part of it would be to sell Van Dijk. So the thought is crossing my mind a bit more than it was a few weeks ago. But I still think it's okay to hold him because you've got that security of starts over Christmas, and that can be useful. So you can focus on bigger problems elsewhere. But yeah, I'm not telling anyone to buy him. In fact, you probably just shouldn't right now. In fact, you shouldn't buy him. You shouldn't, not with 2 away games in the next 3. But if you've got him, I think there are some reasons to hold on to him. But again, as always, if you've got the luxury of moving him on and you don't see it as a big issue moving forward, it's fine. It really is. So last night was the perfect example of why I personally struggle to bring players like Cody Gakpo into my FPL squad, because he got another start against Sunderland after playing the full game against West Ham, but he gets brought off at half-time for Salah. And Slot's basically got so many options in attack that he can make changes like that. Like Wirtz can go and play off the left and Salah plays on the right, Szoboszlai goes back into midfield. Gakpo's minutes are just not guaranteed, especially with midweek fixtures and stuff like that. Now, when Salah goes to African Cup of Nations, those minutes presumably will be a lot better. But can you guarantee he's going to start every game and never get subbed off early? Probably not. And for 7.5 million, you could maybe argue that's okay. Because not many players play the full game every single game week. But I do think there are just better midfielders out there, personally. Like, if I think about my personal team, like my own team, my midfield at the moment is Saka, Minte, Dewsbury Hall, Fernandes, Cunha. Now, after the Man United West Ham game tonight, that might look absolutely awful, but I just don't know where the spot is for Gakpo. Like, because if I'm trying to get another midfielder in right now, surely it is Phil Foden, right? So he's next on the priority list, and obviously he's a bit more expensive than Gakpo. It's always easy to say you should get the expensive player. It's not so easy in reality because you need to free up funds. But that is who I would try and get in. And even after that, right, I don't own Semenyo right now. But if I get to game week 17 and I need a midfielder that's less than 8 million, I'd probably look at him before Gakpo because I know he'll play 90 against Burnley. I know he'll play 90 against Brentford. Then maybe I move him on in game week 19 if I've got a bunch of free transfers saved up. And that's, by the way, if I want to sell Minte or Saka, which maybe I don't want to do. So, look, everyone's team is different. Everyone's preference is different. But Gakpo would just frustrate me. Here's what I would say, right? Last night he got subbed at half-time. If you're an owner, you're frustrated. I don't think anyone's happy about that. But if you were super frustrated, you're like raging, you want to transfer him out, he's not the kind of pick for you. Simple as that. If you're someone that went, okay, well, I got the whole game against West Ham. Okay, it's an early sub. It's probably not going to happen that much more. I'm happy to risk it going forward. That's fine. You're the kind of manager that can deal with a Cody Gakpo. If you can't deal with it, just get rid of him and buy someone that's a little bit safer. Is that Phil Foden? We'll find out in a few weeks, I guess. So let's move off Liverpool for a second and talk about Jean-Philippe Mateta at Crystal Palace, because I know a lot of people are thinking about selling him. I've got him in my own team. I'm not quite sure what to do for game week 15. And even game week 16 when it comes to that. Like in game week 16 itself, it feels like quite a nice switch to Thiago. But there's still part of me that quite likes him as a longer term option. Like Crystal Palace are a good side. He's clearly first choice. He's going to start the majority of games. Yes, his minutes have taken a dip recently, but they're not always going to be like that. And he's first choice penalty taker as well. So in some ways, I think there is still a good FPL pick there. But in others, I think he's 8.1 million. You've got Thiago for a lot less money, who's got really good fixtures from 16. And the minutes have taken a dip. And you can never be sure now when it hits 60 minutes how much longer he's going to last, as long as Nketiah stays fit. Because Glasner has now got that choice to switch him. Like he did play 90 against Man United not too long ago, right? Game week 13. So we shouldn't just assume he's always going to be subbed on 60 minutes. But it was only 63 against Burnley. It was only 59 against Wolves. So the next time they have a midweek game week, his minutes could suffer. And so Yeah, I'm not at the stage where I think he's a must sell because I quite like the fixtures longer term. After the City game, Leeds away, Spurs at home, Fulham away, not bad. And I'm going to use that word again. I think he is pretty sellable at the moment. Like when you look at Crystal Palace's fixtures, including non-Premier League ones, like they play Fulham on Sunday after just playing midweek. Then they've got their European match on Thursday. Then they play Man City, which is not a great. And by the way, Fulham away, I don't think is an amazing fixture anyway. I know that sounds so stupid after they've just conceded a ton of goals to Man City, but it's not a fixture you'd necessarily go out of your way to target. So they've got Fulham away, then Europe on Thursday, then Man City at home, which is not a great fixture really, then Europe on the 18th of December, then they play Leeds away on the 20th. Now, you might look at it and say, Nketiah will get the European game. It's at home, it's an easy enough fixture. But Palace is sat in 18th place in the Europa Conference League table. Like some of those earlier results where they didn't get the win and might come back to haunt them now. So my assumption is that the rotation will probably happen in Europe. I can't guarantee that. And if Mateta starts that game 2 days later, he's got to play Leeds away. I mean, even if he starts both of those games, like what kind of state is he going to be in? So I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself into this because honestly, it would be handy to get Thiago and free up some money. It would make it easier for me to go and get Foden. But Fulham away, City at home, not ideal. Leeds away is fine, but it's 2 days after they play in Europe. And by the way, 3 days later, they play Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. It's a ridiculous fixture run. And we know Glasgow doesn't rotate that much, which sounds great, and it is in some ways, but it also means that players have got to play a lot of minutes that they're not necessarily used to. Like if he starts all these, like Mateta probably won't start all these games, but let's say he does. I mean, it's not ideal for this Leeds game. And he probably does miss one. Which one is it? Is it definitely the European match? Presumably it will be, but it's just not a guarantee, is it? If it is, by the way, that means he gets 6 days rest between City and Leeds. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think Mateta is sellable. I don't think he's a massive problem or anything like that. I know people go from one extreme to the other, like Mateta's essential. Now you've got to sell him at all costs. I don't think that's the case, but you free up some money. I mean, Thiago has, by the way, just got benched. We're going to talk about him in a second. He's not perfect either. But yeah, I think I'm going to end up selling Mateta in 15 or 16. I haven't quite accepted it yet. Basically, I think it's fine to do. So as I've just mentioned him, let's talk about Thiago next. He was benched against Arsenal last night, only played for about 30 minutes in the second half, which isn't ideal. Although, if you're an owner of Thiago, getting benched against Arsenal is probably the best fixture it can happen in because it's going to be difficult to get an attack and return anyway. Should we see this as a problem moving forward? Interestingly, there was an article that I tweeted last night. I think it was Standard Sport with some quotes from Keith Andrews. And he kind of made out like it was a tactical change because they went to a back three. So they only played 2 up front. And when we've seen them do that in the past, it's been Thiago and Sharda. It's been Dangu Utara that's missed out. This time it was Utara and Sharda and Thiago was on the bench. But in that same article with the quotes, Keith Andrews was talking about some knocks and stuff that they had as well. So they were taking that into account. And we know that Thiago went off against Burnley with a little bit of a problem, which obviously wasn't massive because he played 30 minutes last night. So maybe it was that as well. So maybe it was partly tactical, but he felt like he didn't want to risk Thiago. And obviously he was out for a long time last season as well. So we have to acknowledge that Thiago is not perfect, right? He could get benched midweek now moving forward, but I still think he's a pretty good FPL pick for 6.7 million. Like he's going to play good minutes when he starts. The fixtures are good as well. It's Spurs away this week, Leeds at home 16, Wolves away 17, then Bournemouth at home, Spurs at home in 18 and 19. We know he's first choice penalty taker as well. And also, by the way, if in any of those games, any of those games after game week 16, Keith Andrews thinks he wants to play a back three, Dangu Utara is going to African Cup of Nations. Now, how long he's away for will depend on how well his country does, etc. But surely Thiago just starts all those games. And I think when I look at the fixtures for Brentford, so if when's the next midweek? I think there's not actually that many midweek game weeks coming up until you get to just after Christmas. So they play on the 20th in game week 17, the 27th in game week 18, then it's the 1st of January. I mean, even that's not bad. Saturday, Thursday turnaround. He absolutely could play Bournemouth and Spurs, and they're both at home, which helps. Maybe this one, maybe game week 20, Sunday the 4th of January, before playing again on the 7th. Maybe he misses Everton away, and maybe Utara is back at that point. But we'll have to wait and see. Basically, I still think he's okay to buy. I wouldn't see it as a massive problem that he missed Arsenal away. 6.7 million is good value. I guess one thing to think about, which people might be considering, game week 16, when Mateta plays City and Thiago's got Leeds at home, I mean, that feels like quite an easy time to switch. What about this week? What about if you've got no other transfers to make and you're thinking about making the Mateta to Thiago switch early? I mean, Mateta's got Fulham away. Thiago's got Spurs away. I wouldn't say that one of those fixtures is miles better than the other one. Presumably, you'd rather play Spurs, actually. But I think it's pretty close in terms of fixture difficulty. Is it okay to do? Maybe it is. Yeah, maybe if you've got nothing else to do, maybe Mateta to Thiago is a move you could consider. For what it's worth, if Mateta plays like 75 plus minutes, I think I do prefer him. Like, his underlying numbers are better. Right, Thiago's putting up 0.29 non-penalty expected goals per 90. Mateta's like 0.5. And I know Mateta's frustrating because he misses a lot of chances, but he gets a lot of chances as well. So, all things equal in terms of minutes, I'd much rather have Mateta this week. But will the minutes be equal? Probably not. Thiago will probably play more. So I think it's okay to make that switch if you want to. And I think Thiago's price is just going to keep going up, by the way. That's the other thing. Like, it'll probably go up before the game week 15 deadline. If he does well against Spurs, it's definitely going to go up again before Leeds. And also, people are going to get to game week 16 with 5 free transfers. There's going to be moves all over the place. So, yeah, I like Thiago, basically. I wouldn't panic too much about what happened last night. So just to quickly go through some other things that happened last night. For Arsenal, Eze, Saka and Timber all benched. I mean, Eze, I think, was always a possibility because Odegaard's obviously back now. And personally, I think longer term, Eze's just not a great FPL pick. I don't think you can guarantee the minutes. Odegaard can easily start ahead of him centrally, and it's not a guarantee that Eze will go and play on the left. So for me, Eze is not a must-sell because he'll start against Villa, I'm sure. But longer term, I'm not convinced by him. Saka is a problem because of his cost. If you can't guarantee he's going to start every week, that does dip his value quite a bit. Again, if you've got Saka, probably not a major issue because he'll start against Villa away. It's just, will he start that Wolves at home game? So between game weeks 15 and 16, they do have a Champions League match. Now, after the Wolves game, as someone pointed out to me last night, they've got no match until they play Everton away in 17. So personally, and again, I've been quite wrong over the last couple of weeks, so take it with a pinch of salt. But personally, I think he starts Villa, like, definitely. Got no doubts about that. I also think he's going to start Wolves. Even to the point that if Saka starts the Champions League game, I still think he'll start Wolves as well. Now, it might depend on how many minutes he gets. If he gets 90 midweek in Champions League, maybe I'll be a little bit less optimistic about it. But they've got no game until a week later against Everton. The problem is they've got capable backups now, like Madueke, who can play on the right. He's not as good as Saka, of course not, but he is a very good player. So I think the value has dipped quite a bit in Saka, but I'm not going to sell him before Wolves at home. The key question for me will be, do I still captain him? That I'll have to decide in game week 16. He might be some, like, basically, Saka for me is my personal get out to get Foden. If after 16 I decide the minutes are just not going to be good enough over Christmas for 10.1 million, then I might just sell him to Foden. Although, when I say that out loud, Foden's minutes definitely going to be that much better than Saka. I don't know. We'll decide that in a few game weeks' time. Timber also benched. And by the way, Ben White got man of the match last night, which is not ideal. Mosquera got injured. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. Timber played centre-back. So if Mosquera is going to be out for a few weeks and Saliba's not back, Timber will presumably keep playing there. But I think Saliba will be fine. I would expect Saliba to play game week 15, but let's see what Arteta says on Friday. So Timber again, he'll play Villa. I'm sure he'll play Wolves again as well. Sorry. Let's reassess it moving forward after that. If you're not a Timber owner, should this put you off buying him? Maybe a little bit. Again, like I said with Thiago, when you get to this game week here, game week 20, I mean, it's Bournemouth away, then Liverpool at home, so presumably he'll want Timber there if he's still his first choice. But it's just not a guarantee the minutes there. I don't know. I think he'll start the majority of these games, personally, but I thought that last week as well. I still think Timber's okay to buy. This is what makes Van Dijk good. You just don't have these worries. Watkins brace, which is obviously good. What a comeback, by the way, for Aston Villa. I don't think I would be buying him, though. I just don't think the fixtures are good enough. He always does really well against Brighton, too. Like, it's literally Arsenal this week. Like, he's got to play Arsenal twice in the next 5 game weeks, and one of the other game weeks is Chelsea away. Just ignore Watkins. Simple as that. Welbeck benched. Again, it's going to be a problem the next midweek, but he should start against West Ham. So if you've got him, you absolutely keep him. If you're buying new, I'd just go Thiago, I think. And for Chelsea, Palmer's back. He came off the bench and got, I didn't check this, according to FPL site, he got 29 minutes. So that's positive moving forward. The problem is he's not guaranteed to start against Bournemouth, although he probably will. But how many of these games is he going to get good minutes? Because again, he's 10.3 million. You need the minutes. And okay, we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But I've just got a feeling it's going to take quite a while until we get Palmer back to being 90 minutes week in, week out. Maresca just doesn't really take risks, which I think is a good thing for the players. And he's been out for quite a while. And they do have Champions League matches and stuff like that as well. So, look, obviously Palmer is capable of getting plenty of points in just 60, 70 minutes, but it's not what you want for FPL for 10.3 million. So anyone thinking about bringing Palmer in, I think it's massively risky for the next couple of weeks. I wouldn't be looking at it until kind of Everton at home in 16 maybe. Even then, they've got to travel to Newcastle away the game week after. I don't know. In some ways, it's nice to have Palmer back because it gives us something to think about. But I don't know. Personally, I'm probably just going to ignore him for a while. I need to see the minutes from him before I'm going to go back there. Basically, I want to see how Maresca manages him with the midweek fixtures as well. There we go. If you enjoyed that, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'm sure there's some players I've missed out that I need to discuss ahead of the deadline. I will have team selection tomorrow morning once the game week is finished. I want to see what happens with Fernandes and Cunha tonight. Might be that Fernandes misses out. If it does, by the way, I get vice-captain Haaland, which obviously is a little bit of luck. But people making out like it's massively jammy. That means I get Anderson 0-pointer off the bench. I promise you now, I'd much rather Fernandes started than missed out completely. Because he's my captain, if he gets 8 points, which he's capable of doing against West Ham, that's better for me than getting the vice-captain on Haaland. So I really want him to play. I don't know if he will. Worst case is if Fernandes is on the bench tonight. That will be an absolute killer for me. Almost all my free hit gains have been wiped out this week. I'm having an awful week, but hopefully Fernandes and Cunha can rescue me. So I'll do team selection tomorrow once the game week is finished. I know what my rank is, my score, thoughts on what I'm going to do moving forward. And then we'll have final thoughts after all the press conferences in the afternoon. And then I'll cover any questions that I've missed in this video. So thanks for watching. Give it a like, hit subscribe. Hope your game week's going better than mine. And I'll catch you tomorrow.